The sky above NASA's Arecibo Observatory flickered with stars on a clear April night. Olivia Sutton pushed her glasses up her nose as she stared at her computer screen. The 32-year-old astronomer had been tracking unusual energy readings near Jupiter for the past 3 hours. She took a sip of cold coffee and squinted at the data. "That can't be right," she muttered. The readings showed multiple large objects that had appeared seemingly out of nowhere. They weren't there yesterday. Olivia checked her equipment twice, but everything was working correctly. This was real. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for her phone. It was 2:47 a.m., but this couldn't wait until morning. She called Dr. Frank Miller, her supervisor. "Frank, it's Olivia. I need you to look at something right now." 20 minutes later, Frank stood behind her, his face pale in the blue light of the monitor. "Those are ships," he said quietly. "Too big and too structured to be anything natural." "That's what I thought too," Olivia said. "And they're not moving like they should. They're just drifting." Within hours, every major space agency on Earth was analyzing the data. The objects were definitely artificial. A fleet of enormous vessels now stranded near Jupiter's orbit. The largest was nearly a mile long. 3 days passed as governments debated what to do. Then, on the 4th morning, a signal reached Earth. It came from the alien fleet, broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Teams of linguists and computer scientists worked around the clock to decode it. Olivia was in the cafeteria when she heard people shouting. She ran back to the control room to find everyone gathered around the main screen. "We've translated it," said Carlos, a linguistics expert. "It's a distress call." The message was simple. "Engines failed. Need assistance. We come in peace." The following week was chaos as world leaders argued about how to respond. Some wanted to ignore the aliens completely. Others suggested sending military vessels. In the end, they decided to offer help. Captain Daniel Wright stood in front of 50 carefully selected men and women in a secure facility in Houston. At 45, Daniel had commanded 3 space missions and was known for his calm under pressure. "You've all been chosen for this historic mission," he said. "We leave in 6 days on the International Space Vessel Pioneer. Our job is to establish first contact and determine if we can help these visitors." The ISV Pioneer was humanity's most advanced spacecraft, built through an international effort, but never tested for a mission this far. It would take them nearly 2 months to reach Jupiter's orbit. Olivia was shocked when she received her assignment to the mission. Her expertise in astronomical readings was deemed essential. She had never been to space before. The night before launch, she stood outside looking up at the stars. "Nervous?" asked a voice behind her. She turned to see Daniel Wright. "Terrified," she admitted, "but also excited." He nodded. "That makes 2 of us. We're about to meet beings from another world." "What if we can't help them?" Olivia asked. "Then we try anyway," Daniel said simply. "That's what humans do." The launch day arrived with clear skies. As the Pioneer lifted off, billions watched worldwide. Olivia felt the massive G-forces push her into her seat. Through the small window, she watched Earth shrink until it was just a blue dot. In her pocket was a small photo of her parents. In her mind was a single thought. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and she was about to meet their new neighbors. Ahead lay a journey of 2 months. Ahead lay the unknown. The Pioneer accelerated toward Jupiter, carrying the hopes and fears of an entire planet toward a stranded alien fleet that waited silently in the darkness. The ISV Pioneer approached Jupiter's orbit after 58 days in space. The crew had spent their journey preparing for every possible first contact scenario, but nothing could truly ready them for what lay ahead. "Visual contact in 30 seconds, announced Linda Parker from the navigation station. Daniel stood behind her, hands clasped behind his back to hide their slight tremor. Olivia floated nearby, her tablet ready to record everything. The main screen flickered to life, and the room fell silent. 7 massive ships hung against the backdrop of Jupiter's swirling clouds. Their design was unlike anything humans had imagined: curved, asymmetrical vessels with crystalline structures protruding at odd angles. They gleamed with a bluish-purple iridescence that seemed to pulse gently. "My God," someone whispered. "Open communication channels," Daniel ordered. "Broadcast our greeting message on all frequencies." Minutes passed as they waited for a response. Finally, the communication system chimed. "We're receiving a transmission," said Eric Powell, the communications specialist. "They're sending coordinates for docking." The smallest of the alien ships detached from the main fleet and moved toward them. Up close, the Pioneer crew could see intricate patterns etched across its surface. Following procedure, Daniel selected a team of 7 to join him on the first boarding party. Olivia, their xenobiologist Dr. Peter Hall, 2 security officers, their chief engineer Susan Gray, and the linguist Dr. Kyle Bennett. They suited up in their specially designed first contact gear and entered the airlock connecting the ships. The alien vessel had adjusted its atmosphere to match Earth's, allowing them to remove their helmets once inside. "Remember, no sudden movements," Daniel reminded everyone. The inner door slid open to reveal a curved corridor with walls that seemed almost alive, pulsing with soft light. At the end stood 3 figures. The aliens were like nothing they had expected. Standing about 5 feet tall, they resembled something between insects and crustaceans. Their bodies were covered in iridescent exoskeletons similar to their ships. Each had 4 slender arms and 2 legs. Their heads featured compound eyes that reflected the light in rainbow patterns. "Hello," Daniel said, making the practiced open hand gesture they had decided upon. "We come from Earth to assist you." One of the aliens stepped forward. A small device on its chest flickered. "We are called Zerillians," came a synthesized voice. "I am Fleet Commander Kaztek. We thank humans for answering our call." The meeting moved to what seemed to be a conference room, with surfaces that adjusted to comfortably accommodate both species. Through careful translation, Commander Kaztek explained their situation. "Our quantum displacement drives failed during passage through your star system," the alien explained. "Without them, we cannot reach faster than light speeds. Our colony worlds lie 17 light-years from here. At sublight speed, the journey would take generations." "What caused the failure?" Susan asked. "Unknown anomaly in your system's spatial fabric," Kaztek responded, mandibles clicking in what they would later learn was frustration. "Our scientists cannot solve." Olivia noticed something peculiar about the aliens' behavior. When faced with questions, they would touch antennae together before answering, as if consulting a group mind. "How much time do you have?" Daniel asked. "Life support systems will fail within 82 of your days," Kaztek said. 6,000 Zerillians aboard our vessels, many in hibernation to conserve resources. Dr. Hall leaned forward. "May I ask why you came to our solar system?" The 3 Zerillians touched antennae again, longer this time. "We are explorers," Kaztek finally said. "We seek knowledge of all sentient species. We detected your radio transmissions. We were curious." Daniel nodded slowly. "We'll help you if we can. Our engineers will need to study your drive systems." "Impossible," another Zerillian interjected. "Our technology far beyond human understanding." Susan Gray smiled slightly. "With all respect, you might be surprised what humans can understand when we need to." The Zerillians' compound eyes flickered with changing colors, their first encounter with human determination. Days turned into weeks as the Pioneer team worked to understand the alien technology. Earth sent its brightest minds to help, including Dr. Matthew Collins, a physicist known for his unconventional thinking. The tall, bearded scientist arrived with a team of specialized engineers on a supply vessel from Earth. "So these are our new friends," Matthew said, observing the Zerillians with open curiosity during his first briefing. He had spent the journey studying the preliminary reports, but seeing the aliens in person left him momentarily speechless. The Zerillians had reluctantly allowed the humans access to their engine rooms. The vast chambers housed technology that seemed to defy the laws of physics as humans understood them. The quantum drives were beautiful and terrifying, crystalline structures that pulsed with energy and seemed to partially exist in another dimension. The problem isn't mechanical, Susan explained to Matthew as they floated in the engine room of the main Xyrillian vessel. Their drives work by folding space-time, creating a tunnel between 2 points. Something about our solar system disrupted the field stability. Matthew ran his hand through his hair, a habit when he was thinking deeply. It's like they're trying to sew with a needle that keeps bending. Lisa Patel, a young engineer with expertise in quantum computing, joined them the next day. Her fresh perspective proved invaluable as she noticed patterns in the energy fluctuations that others had missed. "Look at this," she said, pointing to her tablet. "The crystalline matrix is vibrating at a frequency that's creating destructive interference patterns. What if we tried to stabilize it with a dampening field?" The Xyrillians watched with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism as the humans worked. Their species had developed technology through careful, methodical processes over thousands of years. The human approach of intuitive leaps and trial and error seemed chaotic to them. "Your method lacks precision," said Vernak, the Xyrillian chief engineer, after watching Alan Garcia test a modified component that failed spectacularly, filling the room with smoke. Alan coughed and grinned. "Yeah, but we learned something with each failure. That's how humans solve problems." By the third week, tensions were rising. The Xyrillians' resources continued to deplete, and the human team seemed no closer to a solution. During a late-night session, Matthew found himself staring at the quantum drive's core. "We're thinking about this all wrong," he suddenly announced. "We're trying to fix their technology with our understanding of physics. We need to combine approaches." The breakthrough came when Lisa and Alan collaborated with 2 Xyrillian scientists to create a hybrid system. They discovered that Earth metals, particularly a rare titanium alloy, could stabilize the quantum field when incorporated into the alien technology. "It's not elegant," Lisa explained to Commander Kaztek, "but it should allow your drives to function in our solar system long enough for you to reach open space where they can operate normally again." The Xyrillians were stunned by the solution's simplicity. Their rigid thinking had prevented them from considering materials from other worlds could interact beneficially with their technology. "We require substantial quantities of this alloy," Kaztek said. "Our scans show Earth has the necessary resources." Daniel nodded. "I'll request it immediately, but manufacturing that much will take time." "Time we may not have," Vernak reminded them. Matthew looked at the worried faces around him. "Then we'll need to get creative with the extraction and production process too." He turned to the Xyrillians. "If you'll share some of your manufacturing technology, we might be able to speed things up considerably." For the first time, the aliens seemed to consider humans as equals. After a brief antenna-touching consultation, Kaztek made a decision that would change the course of both species' histories. "We will share our replication technology with Earth. It seems logical to exchange knowledge with those who approach problems so differently." The 2 species began to work together in earnest, each bringing their unique strengths to the challenge ahead. The sun's corona suddenly flared, sending a massive wave of charged particles hurtling toward the Jupiter system. The solar observatory on Earth detected it first, sending an urgent warning to both the human and Xyrillian vessels. "Solar storm approaching. Estimated impact in 43 minutes, announced the Pioneer's AI system. Daniel called an emergency meeting with Commander Kaztek. "Our ship has shielding, but it's not designed for a storm this powerful. What about your fleet?" The Xyrillians' compound eyes darkened with concern. "Main vessels protected, but Scout Ship 7 collects materials from moon called Europa. No time return to fleet." The Scout ship contained critical components needed for the quantum drive repairs and 4 Xyrillian crew members. Without those components, the repair timeline would set back by weeks. Time the stranded aliens didn't have. "I can reach them," said Lieutenant Samantha Ross, the Pioneer's best pilot. At 29, she had already set records for precision flying in extreme conditions. The Osprey shuttle is small enough to move fast and has enhanced shielding. Daniel looked doubtful. It's too dangerous, Sam. With respect, Captain, it's our only option, she replied, her green eyes determined. I've flown through worse. Minutes later, Samantha launched in the Osprey shuttle, racing against the approaching wall of radiation. Through the viewport, Jupiter loomed massive, its swirling storms a backdrop to her desperate mission. Europa gleamed like a pearl against the gas giant. Scout Ship 7, this is Lieutenant Ross from Earth Vessel Pioneer. Do you copy? After a tense pause, a Xyrillian voice responded. Earth Vessel, we receive. Storm approaches. Our engines damaged from ice collision. Samantha pushed the shuttle harder, feeling it shudder against Europa's thin atmosphere as she descended. The Xyrillian scout ship came into view, smaller than she expected and clearly damaged, with ice fragments embedded in one side. Radiation levels rising, warned her onboard computer. Storm front impact in 12 minutes. She maneuvered alongside the alien craft, extending the Osprey's docking tube. It wasn't designed to connect with Xyrillian technology, but Eric Johnson, the communications specialist, had worked with the aliens to create an adapter. Almost there, Samantha muttered as the magnetic lock struggled to engage. Finally, they sealed with a loud clank. I'm docked. Xyrillian crew, evacuate to my vessel immediately. The aliens moved quickly, bringing the precious components. Through the docking tube, Samantha saw their insectoid forms for the first time up close. They moved with surprising grace despite their exoskeletons. Storm front in 3 minutes, the computer announced calmly. The last Xyrillian had barely entered the airlock when the radiation wave's outer edge hit them. Warning lights flashed across Samantha's console as systems began to overload. Hold on, she shouted, disengaging from the doomed scout ship and firing the Osprey's thrusters at maximum power. The shuttle shot away from Europa, shaking violently as the storm engulfed them. Samantha's hands flew across the controls, compensating for failing systems. 2 of the Xyrillians huddled behind her pilot's seat, watching her work with what seemed like awe. Your vessel cannot withstand, one said, yet you came for us. That's what humans do, Samantha replied through gritted teeth. We don't leave people behind. Back on the Pioneer, everyone watched the radiation storm overtake the shuttle's position. Communications went dead. Minutes stretched painfully. Then, through the interference, a weak signal appeared. Pioneer, this is Osprey, came Samantha's static-filled voice. Mission accomplished. Request immediate medical assistance for our Xyrillian friends. And maybe a Tau. We're running on emergency power only. The joint human-Xyrillian repair crew cheered. Daniel released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That evening, as Samantha recovered in the medical bay, Commander Kestek personally visited her. The alien laid one of its 4 hands gently on her arm. Today you showed great courage. The translator device conveyed. Our species has much to learn from humans about. What is your word? Selflessness. Samantha smiled tiredly. Just doing my job, Commander. Those components get us all 1 step closer to getting you home. With the critical components recovered, the repair work continued at a steady pace. But as the humans and Xyrillians worked side by side day after day, curiosity about each other grew. During rest periods, informal cultural exchanges began to take place throughout the fleet. In what the humans had dubbed the common room on the main Xyrillian vessel, Dr. Nicole Foster sat across from 3 Xyrillians. As the expedition's xenobiologist, she had been studying their physiology. But today was different. Today was about understanding who they were, not just what they were. So your entire society functions through consensus? Nicole asked, fascinated by the aliens' description of their political structure. Not precisely, replied Tisrel, the Xyrillian cultural liaison. We connect through antenna touch to share information quickly, but each Xyrillian maintains individual thoughts. We value How to explain? Harmonious diversity. Nicole nodded, taking notes. Like an orchestra, everyone plays different instruments but creates unified music. The Xyrillians' compound eyes flickered with blue light, their equivalent of excitement. Excellent analogy. We would enjoy experiencing this orchestra directly. Later that day, Greg Bennett, an amateur violinist, played back for a group of entranced Xyrillians. Their exoskeletons vibrated subtly in response to the music, creating a soft harmonic accompaniment. They're resonating with the frequencies, Nicole whispered to Daniel. Music might be a universal language after all. The Xyrillians were equally generous in sharing their culture. They showed the humans recordings of their homeworld, a planet orbiting a red dwarf star. Its landscapes were alien but beautiful, vast crystalline forests, and deep purple oceans under twin moons. "This is where your colony is heading?" asked Olivia, mesmerized by the images. "No," explained Kaztek. "Homeworld lost habitability 300 Earth years ago. Star radiation increased. We established colonies on suitable planets in nearby systems, became spacefaring civilization by necessity." On the fourth deck of the Pioneer, Chief Medical Officer Ryan Anderson examined a sample under a microscope while a Xyrillian healer named Inzvin observed. "These microorganisms living symbiotically in your bloodstream," Ryan said. "They're incredible. They enhance your immune response and repair cellular damage." "Yes," Nizvin replied. "Without them, we die. We cultivate specific strains for different purposes. These could help humans too, with modification." Ryan looked up sharply. "You think your symbiotes could be adapted to human physiology?" "Perhaps. Your disease is different from ours, but principles of symbiosis universal." As the days passed, these exchanges grew more profound. The Xyrillians shared star charts showing hundreds of inhabited worlds. Humans shared literature, philosophy, and art. Both species found themselves reevaluating their place in the universe. One evening, Daniel noticed Commander Kaztek standing alone, staring at Jupiter through a viewport. He joined the alien leader. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Daniel said. "Yes, different beauty than our worlds." After a pause, Kaztek continued, "Must tell you truth, Captain Wright. Our journey not only for exploration." Daniel tensed slightly. "Oh, we flee from threat. Species called Vormaxians, aggressive, territorial. Discovered our colony coordinates. We sought new regions of space, far from their territory." "Are they following you?" "Unknown. But if they discover Earth," Kaztek's antennae drooped. "Humans not prepared for such encounter." Daniel considered this revelation carefully. "Thank you for telling me. We should discuss this with my superiors. We'll share all knowledge of Vormaxians. Better you prepare now." The alien's compound eyes fixed on Daniel. "Strange. We came seeking help, now wish to protect those who help us." "That's how friendship works," Daniel replied simply. That night, as Nicole reviewed her notes, she realized something profound. In just weeks, two entirely different species had begun to form genuine bonds. The universe had just become both larger and smaller simultaneously, filled with more wonders and dangers, yet somehow more connected. "We're making history," she wrote in her journal, "not just through technological exchange, but through understanding." The day of the first full test arrived. After weeks of round-the-clock work, the modified quantum drive stood ready for activation. The joint team had installed the hybrid system on the smallest Xyrillian vessel as a test case. If successful, they would adapt the solution to the remaining ships. Matthew Collins couldn't stop pacing. The tall physicist checked and rechecked his calculations while teams of humans and Xyrillians made final adjustments to the crystalline structure of the drive. "Everything is in place," Lisa said, closing the access panel to the control system. "The titanium alloy matrix is fully integrated with their quantum field generator." Daniel and Commander Kaztek observed from a safe distance, along with key members of both crews. The test vessel was currently unoccupied and controlled remotely. Commencing startup sequence, Alan announced, his fingers dancing across the control panel. The drive began to hum, its crystal components glowing with increasing brightness. The humans held their breath as energy readings climbed steadily. The Xyrillians' antennae quivered slightly, their equivalent of nervous anticipation. Field stability at 67%, Lisa reported. 70%, 75%, approaching minimum threshold for spacefolding. Matthew nodded, eyes fixed on his readouts. Just a bit more. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the control room. The drive's glow intensified to a blinding flash. Energy cascade. Shut down immediately, shouted Vernak, the Xyrillian engineer. Alan hit the emergency protocols, but it was too late. A violent pulse of energy ripped through the test vessel. The viewing screen showed a massive tear appearing in its hull before the feed cut out completely. Silence fell over the control room. Weeks of work, destroyed in seconds. What happened? Daniel finally asked. Matthew ran diagnostic programs frantically. The field collapsed in on itself. Instead of creating a stable wormhole, it created a quantum implosion. The failure hit the team hard. With resources dwindling and time running short, this setback seemed insurmountable. That night, many gathered in the Pioneers' mess hall, humans and Xyrillians together in shared disappointment. Paul Rivera, the ship's chef, was serving his famous coffee to the exhausted engineers when he noticed something strange in his sugar bowl. "Hey, Matthew," he called across the room. "Come look at this." The physicist reluctantly joined him. "What is it, Paul? I'm not really in the mood for conversation." "Just look," Paul insisted, pointing to sugar crystals forming on the rim of a coffee cup. "I've been watching these crystals form all day. They grow differently here than they did on Earth." Matthew was about to dismiss the observation when something clicked in his mind. He stared at the sugar crystals, seeing their unique formation pattern. "The gravity," he whispered. "It's not the drive that's the problem. It's the gravitational field affecting the crystallization process." He rushed back to his workstation, pulling up data from both Earth and Jupiter's gravity wells, comparing them to readings from the failed test. The next morning, Matthew burst into the emergency meeting, his eyes bright with excitement, despite his obvious lack of sleep. "I know what went wrong," he announced. "Our gravity calculations were based on Earth's field, but Jupiter's gravitational influence creates subtle distortions we didn't account for." He explained how the sugar crystals had revealed the answer. Earth materials crystallize differently in Jupiter's orbit, affecting the quantum resonance of the drive. "The solution isn't in the hardware," Matthew concluded. "It's in the programming. We need to recalibrate the field generators to account for the local gravitational conditions." Over the next 3 days, the team reworked the entire approach. They salvaged components from the damaged test vessel and rebuilt the drive with a new control system that constantly adjusted to gravitational fluctuations. When the second test day arrived, tension filled the control room. Again, the drive hummed to life, crystals glowing. But this time, as the energy levels rose, the readings remained stable. "Field integrity holding at 92%, Lisa announced. 95%, 98%. A perfect sphere of distorted space appeared around the test vessel, then suddenly collapsed. The ship vanished, only to reappear 5 seconds later, 2 million kilometers away. The control room erupted in cheers. Humans hugged each other, while Xyrillians touched antennae in their celebration ritual. "You did it," Commander Kestek said to Matthew. "Your species found wisdom in failure where ours saw only disappointment." "Sometimes," Matthew replied with a tired smile, "the greatest discoveries come from the most unexpected places." The day of departure arrived 4 weeks later. All 7 Xyrillian ships had been successfully retrofitted with the modified quantum drives. On the observation deck of the Pioneer, humans and aliens gathered for their farewell ceremony. Jupiter's massive form filled the viewport, its swirling storms a backdrop to the gleaming Xyrillian vessels. The main fleet ship pulsed with soft blue light, ready for its journey across the stars. Commander Kistek stood before the assembled crews, flanked by Daniel and the other human leaders. The Xerillian's exoskeleton had been polished to a ceremonial shine that reflected the stars themselves. "When we became stranded in your system," Kestek began, the translation device conveying the emotion in his native clicks and whistles, "we feared our journey would end here. Instead, we found not only assistance but friendship." The commander gestured to a large object covered in shimmering material. Two Xerillians removed the covering to reveal an intricate crystalline sphere about 3 feet in diameter. Inside, tiny lights moved like stars. "This contains star charts of all known systems in our explored space," Kistek explained. "And something more valuable, formal invitation for Earth to join the Galactic Concord." A murmur spread through the human crew. This was unexpected. "The Concord," Kestek continued, "is an alliance of 17 peaceful species who share knowledge and protect one another. Your world will no longer face the stars alone." Daniel stepped forward to accept the gift. "On behalf of Earth, we are honored. This marks the beginning of a new chapter for humanity." "There is more," said Kestek. "We offer technology exchange, advancements in medicine, energy production, and space travel. Your ingenuity combined with our established science will benefit both our peoples." Nicole Foster couldn't contain her excitement. "The medical applications alone will transform human healthcare," she whispered to Matthew. "Their symbiotic organisms could help cure diseases we've struggled with for centuries." After the formal exchange, smaller groups said their personal goodbyes. Friendships had formed across the species barrier, surprising everyone. "Will you join us?" Vernak asked Lisa Puddle. "The Concord welcomes skilled engineers who think differently." Lisa looked surprised. "You mean, leave Earth?" "First human ambassador to Xerillian homeworld," the alien engineer replied. "Your perspective valuable." She wasn't the only one receiving such invitations. 6 humans ultimately volunteered to join the Xerillian fleet: engineers, a linguist, a doctor, and a cultural specialist. They would be the first humans to venture beyond the solar system with alien allies. As departure time approached, Commander Kestek and Daniel stood alone by the viewport. "We will return," the Xerillian promised, "and bring representatives from other Concord worlds. Your planet's isolation has ended." "What about the Vormaxians?" Daniel asked. "You mentioned they were a threat. Concord will help prepare Earth's defenses. You will not face them alone." Kestek's compound eyes shifted to a deep blue. "Perhaps human problem-solving will find new solutions to that challenge as well." The final moments came quickly. The human volunteers boarded the main Xerillian vessel, carrying with them Earth's hopes and curiosity. The farewell teams returned to the Pioneer, watching as the alien ships moved into formation. One by one, the Xerillian vessels activated their quantum drives. 7 shimmering spheres of distorted space-time formed around them. In a flash of brilliant light, they vanished, leaving only empty space where they had been. Olivia Sutton, who had first detected the alien fleet months ago, wiped a tear from her eye. "It's strange," she said softly. "The universe feels both bigger and smaller now." Back on Earth, planning began immediately. The ISV Pioneer would be retrofitted using Xerillian technology, becoming humanity's first true interstellar vessel. A new ship, the ISV Ambassador, was already being designed based on the shared alien knowledge. In a special United Nations session, world leaders approved the formation of the Earth Space Alliance, a unified body to represent humanity in the Galactic Concord. For the first time in history, the nations of Earth had a common purpose that transcended old rivalries. 3 months later, as construction began on Earth's first quantum communication array, Daniel Wright looked up at the night sky from his home in Colorado. Somewhere out there, former members of his crew were seeing new worlds, meeting new species. This, he thought, is just the beginning. The stars no longer seemed cold and distant. They were full of potential friends, waiting to be met.